For more than 40 years, WFAA has brought awareness to foster care through our weekly Wednesday's Child segments. Recently, Dallas Mavericks CEO Cynt Marshall and I sat down to discuss how a similar program helped create her family. Cynt, Kenny, it's great to see y'all. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Great to see you.
Can you introduce us to your family?
Of course. We have 3 of the 4 honeys behind us here. We have Kenneth Anthony, who is the second oldest. We have Shirley Elaine, who is the third one. We have Ricky, who is the oldest, and then Alicia is not here with us today.
Tell us how you formed your family.
Okay, the way we formed our family after 10 years of trying to have a family, so 4 second trimester miscarriages, and then 1 premature daughter who died at 6 months old. So all of that, 10 years. So after that, we just knew the Lord had another way to make our family. And this guy right here, Kenny did, really pushed adoption, and he had already started, pushing that. But I was just on this mission that I just got to have these babies. I said something real stupid one time. I said, there's no way you can love kids that somebody else had like they're yours, which is so ridiculous when I look at these honeys, but I didn't know any better, okay? And so I came home one night and he said, we're going to an adoption meeting. And I didn't want to go, and he actually picked me up and put me in his truck and said, we are going, because there are lots of kids in our county, and someone had told him this, that need homes. And I said, nope, you just go to an agency, pay them, and just leave a kid on my doorstep. I'm not dealing with bureaucracy. I was grieving. I mean, my daughter had just passed like 2 months before then. And I just said no. And we ended up going to an adoption meeting, and the rest is history.
Kenny, why were you so insistent that y'all go to the adoption agency?
I think I too was grieving, and I just felt like there was more than one way to make a family. And I was exploring those possibilities because I was so deeply grieved at the time.
How did you know there was more than one way to make a family? You heard Cynt, there is that belief sometimes in some families that, the blood is everything. How did you get past all that?
Well, I think that I've grown up living in a world where I've learned that there's more than one way to do many things. And making a family was just another thing to me. I grew up in a large family, and kids wind up in different places for different reasons. And I couldn't see why we couldn't do this differently, especially if it endangered her life.
And that was it. I almost died a couple of times. I mean, he actually had a doctor ask him, do you want us to try to save your wife or try to save the baby? And he said, I don't want to be in that position again. I just don't want to be in that position where some doctor is asking me to make that decision. And even after that, though, we tried one more time because I was just insistent. And I remember having a coworker. We were on the staircase at work, and he said, Cynt, I have some friends who adopted, and they have 2 adopted kids. It's beautiful. They're a family. And that's when I told him that crazy thing about, I just don't believe you can love a kid like that. And he just said, you're crazy. And then when we adopted Anthony and we sent out the Christmas card with the judge and all that, and we said he adopted us, and we were all smiling. I mean, we're just cheesing, right? And so my buddy called me. He said, what was that you told me? Like, tell me that again. I said, obviously I didn't know what I was talking about. He said, that's what I was trying to tell you, girl, because you can't tell me that, like, I didn't have these kids.
And I love the story about what happened at the adoption agency, right?
Oh, it was beautiful. So we show up to the meeting that night, and it was at our county, right? And so we walk in, and I clearly didn't want to be there, so I had a lightweight attitude. There were only 2 seats left in the room, and they were in the front row. So he grabbed my hand, and he's marching me all the way up to the front row. I don't want to be there. There are 2 social workers in the back, and of course, we hear this story from them later. We don't know it at the time. And so they said, when we walked in, they said, could that guy be Anthony Young's father? I mean, he looks just like him, right? And so they said, of course not, of course not. And so the other social worker said, what are the chances that they want a 2-year-old black boy? And she says, no, because everybody right now that they had in their queue wanted a girl, an infant girl. And so go up, I sit down, and they're going through the whole thing. They're telling us it's about a 1.5 year, 2 year process. And I'm like, good. And I looked at him and I said, I really don't want to be here. And so they told us to fill out some papers. So that was before, everything was just digital, so back in the day. And so I guess the guy heard me tell him, I said, I don't want to do all this. Because of course I'm in the front row. And then the guy said, and so for anybody who doesn't want to fill out everything, they can just write down their name and in the upper right-hand corner, what kind of kid they're interested in. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. So I write down my name and I put in the upper right-hand corner, 2-year-old black boy. At that point, a hand reaches over me because at this point, the social worker said, she told her, she goes, I believe in miracles. So I'm going to go over there and talk to these people. So she was actually standing behind me when I wrote down 2-year-old black boy. And so this hand comes over me and actually grabs the paper. And I look at her, and in fact, he was sitting to my right. I look at her, Kenny looks over, and she says, are you really interested in a 2-year-old black boy? And I was being sarcastic. I said, no, I just wrote that down. And then I just started crying. And so then he looked at me, he got emotional, and he told the social worker, he said, we just lost an infant girl. And so we don't want to replace her, special K, and her name was Carolyn with the K, because he's Kenny with the K. And he says, we can't replace her, so we just said, we'll go kind of just the opposite. So we'll do a 2-year-old black boy. And I said, yeah, and by the way, I just want him to be able to fall in my routine. So if I don't have to do all the diapers, then I don't have to. So we laughed about it, right? Which, of course, they bring their own routine, right? So the 1.5 to 2 year process actually started the next day. We got a call the next day telling us about this one. It was unbelievable.
When you hear your mom and dad talk about those moments, what do you think about all that?
Well, I love it. I mean, I think, I was placed on this earth to be a light, and I was able to do that for them, and now I get to do it for so many other people. So it makes me smile, and it warms my heart when I hear them tell this story, especially as an adult. So, especially
the fact that your mother wrote down a 2-year-old black boy.
God, man.
Mm-hmm. So safe to say at the beginning, y'all were not on the same page about adoption?
No, because 10 years of me trying and almost dying just about every time. But I want to do it. You know me. So I'm type A. I have a plan. I had this plan. I was going to graduate from college, start working, 2 years later, get married, then start a family. So I had it all mapped out. And then it all happened the way I wanted it to happen until we got to the have a family part. And I was just insistent. I am going to do this my way. Everything I've ever tried to do in life, I was just told, dream, focus, pray, and act. It'll happen. And so I didn't realize the Lord had another plan for us, and it's a beautiful plan, obviously. He had another plan. And so sometimes you just have to be open and yield to his plan. So they called us that next day. They told us about this 2-year-old boy. And he had been in the system since, the child welfare system since he was 9 months old. They gave us his story. We went and we read the paperwork. We actually read about a brother who was 9 years old at the time when they were found and separated. And so we're reading this whole story. We asked about the brother. They told us the brother was somewhere else, which there was just some misinformation there. And so we met him, and he was suffering from failure to thrive and just had a lot of different issues, had been in 3 or 4 different foster homes.
Already,
at 2.5 years old already, and suffering from abandonment, neglect, abuse, all of that, but just absolutely precious. And so when Kenny laid eyes on him, he said, all that boy needs is love and a haircut. He said, we got the love, and I'll take him to get a haircut every week. And they went to the barbershop every week for a long time.
And then how did the other babies come along?
Well, the other babies came along because, so I came in late from work one day, and this is what I get for working late. And he runs to the garage door and met me and said, there's this little girl on TV. And so he had these big old eyes, and he starts telling me. So at this point, he's about 5 years old. And he starts telling me about this little girl on television. He said, and it was a Wednesday's Child segment, so you can appreciate it in San Francisco, right? And so Shirley's a Wednesday's Child. And so he says, and they had this number to call, this 100 kind of number, and I made Dad call the number, and Dad said she sort of looks like you, and she looks sad like you did when you were little. And I'm looking at him like, what? He goes, Mom, don't worry about that. She needs to be adopted. I'm going to adopt her the way you guys adopted me. She needs a big brother. He didn't say anything about a mother or a father. He said she needs a big brother. And I made Dad call. And I'm looking at him because I could barely keep up with this new life of mine, executive woman, kid in the house, and I'm already coming in late. And I'm like, what? And so he told me later, he goes, don't worry about it. He said, yeah, he maybe make the call, but don't worry about it. He goes, we're just going to have him. I said, okay, okay.
I prepped him as well as I could.
Yeah. They had it all mapped out, right? And so then, of course, the people called us, and 800 people called the TV station because she's cute as a button, and we got her. And she had been left in San Francisco General Hospital. Her discharge record said this discharge is a miracle. She had gone through a lot, and some foster parents took her home to a special needs home, and all the kids had severe special needs, and Shirley was thriving. And they thought, you know what, she's thriving. We think we can mainstream her into just, another kind of family. She doesn't, she has special needs, but not to this degree. And they made a decision to feature her on Wednesday's Child.
How old was she?
2. And so cute. That's why, so many people called. Just so cute. But he caught it, okay? She caught his eye. And so we laughed because we moved to North Carolina and a similar thing happened with our daughter, Alicia. So when he went to college, I said, give me the remote control. Because he's picking all his sisters, he's picking the kids off TV, okay? I got the Wednesday's Child, I got the Friday's Child. I'd be like, give us the remote control, okay? Okay, he's just picking the kids.
Big hearts.
And so then we get a call that Christmas. So this is all literally happening at the same time. Okay, so Shirley wasn't with us yet. Okay, we just found out about her. So we're, starting the process. But then we get this call. Literally, it was 2 days after Christmas. And Anthony had a little play date scheduled with one of his little classmates. And they said, we're calling to let you know that Anthony's birth mom has passed away. And we've told his brother, who is 14, and he's really upset. And his first question is, whatever happened to his little brother? That he had only seen him like one time since they were split up, because they were found in an old abandoned place. He had been taking care of Anthony for 2 months, feeding him and all that. Because the mom had gone to jail. The mom was taken away to jail, but nobody told the police that the mom had left these 2 boys. And so Ricky was handling business. 9 years old, he was taking care of his brother. So for 2 months. So anyway, so they find them, they split them up. And so then Ricky was in a group home, very stable, with some other young men. He has a foster mom, Minnie Harris, who specializes in teenage boys, who is just a saint. And so they asked if they could have pictures of Anthony so that they could show the pictures to Ricky, because his first question is, what happened to his little brother? Yes, he was grieving the loss of his mother, hadn't seen her in a while, but what happened to his little brother? And so this one here said, yeah, we got pictures, but we'd like to meet him. We want him to know his brother. And so we told Anthony, we said, well, we're going to let you go to your play date, because, of course, we have to go check it all out first and check out the landscape. And then we said, because we're going to go see your brother. And he said, brother, cousins? Because at this point, he has it's 6 of them, 6 of us. And so at this point, he's got a bajillion cousins. So he just knew the word cousin. And finally, he couldn't grasp brother. So I said, yeah, fine. And so he said, no. I don't want him to think that's his cousin. He needs to know that's his brother who saved his life. He needs to know we're going to see his brother. And so he was trying to explain it to him. He didn't quite understand. So we walk into the home, and then of course Ricky walks out, and it's like I'm looking at Anthony. And then we gave him the photo albums. He goes in the back room. He's showing his foster brothers the photo albums, and he's talking about Disneyland and looking at pictures like he was there with us. So Kenny's crying, I'm crying, the foster mother is crying. because she was like leery
The
at
two
first.
boys haven't met yet.
They
though.
haven't met yet.
Okay.
So Anthony is on his play date. We go to see Ricky. Ricky is in the back talking. And at this point, we hear him, and that's when we all decide we're going to reunite them tonight. Like they need to be back together tonight. And so we asked the foster mother, we said, can we take him with us to go and pick up Anthony? Then we'll take him out to eat, and then we'll bring him back. And she said, absolutely.
Do you remember that, Ricky?
I remember, I remember that, and I also remember when Anthony first came to the house. He came to the house, and I was like, it's some little kid here. Like, I didn't know who he was. I'm like, it's some little kid at the door. I don't know who it is. Is this anybody's, I didn't know who he was. And it's like, this is Anthony. I'm like, what? Like, that's my little brother? Like, I didn't know who he was. It was crazy. So.
Yeah, because when he opened the door, so we go back to the people's house, and I said, you just go there and ring the doorbell, because we didn't tell him what was happening. And Anthony opens the door, and Ricky's looking at him, and he's trying to figure out, he's looking back at us, and he's like, just like he said, who is this? And I said, because he doesn't know if it's the little boy that lives there. And I said, that's Anthony. He's my brother. And then, you remember,
I
he
broke
just
down.
broke down. He
Yeah.
broke down. He broke down.
Why did you break down?
I mean, because it's my brother, and I haven't seen him in so long, and we were, had a close bond. So, it's been a long time, and, just all those years and all that time wondering where he is and how he's doing, that's the only thing that I can think about at that age,
You were so young, and you were stressed about the little brother who had been separated from you.
Yes.
I mean, Ricky was literally wrapping me up, putting me in this cart, going around finding food around the neighborhood, and then he would go back into where we were staying, and that's how people saw us. They were like, well, there's these two little kids over there. And so that's how the whole thing happened. They called child services, and boom.
Have you thanked Ricky for all of this?
What? Oh my, there's not enough thanks I can give this man. And yeah, I mean, we just being older now, we're both 30 plus years old, and we have such a tight bond. We talk about a lot of things together. We get to have our own trips. We have our own relationship that has nothing to do with our parents and our, we have this brother bond that will never be changed or broken. So it's amazing, and I love this guy so much, and he knows it.
There are a lot of children who are separated in foster care, Kenny, and they stay separated. But that was clearly something you weren't going to have.
I think I've just always had a fairly strong sense of family and kinship and relationship, and I think it's important to know who your people are. And that I just kind of follow that, that sort of beacon. And it was just important to me at the time, especially reuniting them. I needed them to understand who they were and what the reuniting was about.
Why is it important to understand who you are and where you come from?
I think it's like the compass for the journey. You have to know where you start. You have to know where you start, so then that helps direct where you are going. It helps to know your roots. It helps. Sometimes you'll get in situations where that's the only thing that will ground you. You have to know who you are. You belong to somebody, even if they're not in your life right now. One thing I've told all of the kids is your birth mothers loved you. They loved you for reasons just out of your control, circumstances, some things out of their control. They couldn't take care of you. So then the Lord blessed us to all come together. But you were loved. And now we get to care for you. We get to love and care for you. So it's just good to know your roots. It's good to know you're loved. Despite all the circumstances, it's just good to know. And there's a connection. It's good to know you belong to people. I mean, these kids, no matter what, they're kids to me, right? So no matter what they get into, they know we got them. And vice versa, no matter what we get into, we know they got us. It's a beautiful thing.
Kenneth Anthony, I asked if you thanked your brother Ricky. Now, Shirley, have you thanked Kenneth Anthony?
Yes. Yes, I have. A lot. I've been very grateful that I've been put into this family and getting to know them as well. and just grow up with them. Like, it was so much fun, honestly. It was really fun.
So with so many dynamics at play, you know, we've got brothers getting reunited, we've got Wednesday's child, Friday's child. I mean, we got all these things going on. How long did it take you to feel like a family?
Okay, it was quick, but there was a moment in time where we just had to address it. And that's when Ricky was over, because Ricky decided that he was going to have the best of both worlds, because at 14, they let him make a decision. Okay, so he said he would stay with Minnie during the week because he was in high school already, but he'd come with us on the weekends and the holidays and all that.
Foster mom is
Foster mom. And it's beautiful because Ricky was a freshman in the high school where I went to high school. And I said, Ricky, I said, where do you go to school? He goes, Kennedy High School. And this foster home is right around the corner from my mother's house. That's how close it was. And I said, honey, do you know Mrs. Gardner in the main office? He goes, I love Mrs. Gardner. She is so sweet, blah, 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 blah. I said, well, that's your new grandma. I said, that's my mom. My mom said the next day Ricky was in there like, Grandma, I need $5 for lunch. Wait. So Ricky bonded real quick, okay? Ricky was in there getting lunch money, okay? And so then one time, Ricky was there on the weekend and Shirley was on his back. And he's just such a good big brother, like he'd let him do anything, right? And she's hitting him in the head like a horse and all that. So Anthony comes up and he says, stop hitting on him, stop hitting on him. And she said, he's my brother, we're playing. And Anthony goes, no, he's my brother. He saved my life and he's my brother. Shirley says, well, he's my brother too, and now he's saving my life. You found me, and now that's my brother too. You got to share him. And I said, okay, everybody, we're a family. Everybody can share everybody. And Shirley kind of looked at Anthony, and they looked, and then Ricky grabbed them both. And then after that, that's what you get back there. It was that moment.
Your children are older now. As you look back, what would you tell yourself in those scary moments 20 years ago?
I would tell myself that the Lord has a plan, and that I need to give up on my plan, and that I am not in control. And I always quote the scripture, Jeremiah 29:11, and I used to send it to them when they were in college every day, that the Lord has a plan for us. And it's to give us hope and a future. I mean, He has a plan for us. And it's a good plan. He wants us to prosper. There's a future for us. And I would tell myself that scripture is real and I need to act on it and be open to His plan, not mine. That I don't need to have all these miscarriages. I don't need to go through everything I'm going through. He has a plan. It took me 10 years to finally let that scripture come to life. So I would tell myself, just let go and let God. But when you were talking about the scary moments, and I know you're talking about that whole 10-year period, the miscarriages, the death of the daughter and all that, him hearing the doctor say, who do you want us to save, the baby or your wife? Those were crazy times. And obviously we lived through them. I guess we had to. But if I could do it all over again, I'd avoid some of that. But I got these honeys now. I got these honeys, my babies. My babies, they're lively. Those are my honeys. And they've taught us so much. I mean, and I tell a lot of different stories in my speeches about all three of them. The listening lesson that he taught me, the perspective lesson that Shirley taught me when she got all her different eyeglasses, and I felt so sad to realize that her vision was the same as mine. And I remember telling that baby when I tried on all 5 of her eyeglasses because she wanted me to come home because she had swim glasses, soccer glasses, this, that, and the other. Because, you know, she's daddy's baby, so good health care. He gave her all that. And finally I said, honey, she goes, Mom, why you look so sad? I said, baby, I didn't realize your vision was as poor as it is. I said, you have, I think at the time I was like 45. I said, you have like 45-year-old eyes. And she looked at me and she says, Mom, you ought to be happy. Young thing, you ought to tell Dad, you got 10-year-old eyes. Whatever age we were. I mean, she was like, she looked at it from her perspective like I should be happy to have her eyes instead of the other way around. And I still talk about that. I said that girl gave me a different perspective that day that I still have, looking through the world through different.
So what does it mean to you to be a family?
I mean, family is everything. it keeps you grounded, and you know, it's one of the, like, I love family. Like, no matter what's going on in the world, even when I have down days or anything like that, I always reflect back on my family, and it's my happy place, you know. And my mom always instilled these words that was, you know, that she came up on, which was focus, dream, pray, and act. And so we live on those. We live on those today, and that's what keeps us going. And just watching her succeed just pushes everybody. She's the motor. You know, we just go and follow behind her. That's all.
That's so sweet. That's on tape. Okay, I need that clip.
And I can tell, Shirley, that your mama taught you to smile.
Yeah. Yes, she did.
I always tell my kids, Mother Teresa said, smile, because it's the beginning of love.
It is. You just smile your way through it. You smile your way through it.
Yeah, like Ricky said, family's everything. To see my family and my parents try to have a family and to make a family, and to see the family that they brought us into, they're having huge families. It really solidifies that into our hearts and our souls. Like, this is what we're doing it for. At the end of the day, this is all we have. Regardless if we're gone tomorrow, like, our family's going to be there. And so it's beautiful, and I'm super thankful to think that this is my sister, this is my brother. I have another sister that, you know, I had a hand in creating and helping, so it's everything to me.
And you continue, Kenny, to help children, the two of you, I mean, in a very big way through Dallas Casa. Can we talk about that for a minute, Kenny? People watching this may be interested in how they can help. Obviously, you're strong advocates. What would you say to people that want to help, especially men?
I would say to you that it's a way that you can help others. After I adopted children, I realized that these were not the only children that needed to be supported. And I also felt like I could participate in a different way. So my recommendation would be to volunteer for an organization like CASA, or volunteer for CASA in particular. And I found it to be very rewarding in terms of just supporting the whole idea of family.
You just wrote a book.
Yes.
I recommend it. Highly, highly, highly recommend it.
Thank you.
It's an incredible book.
Thank you.
You've been chosen.
Yes.
Why?
It's about, that whole book is about how God and great people have always shown up in my life, and how God and great people have shown up in the lives of these people around me. And that the things that happen to us, the good, the bad, the great, and the ugly, especially the bad and the ugly, it all happens for a reason. It's a setup, that we've been chosen for the things that we go through, but we are uniquely equipped to get through them, especially if we rely on our village. So you've been chosen. You can thrive through the unexpected. And so when I think about my 10 years of trying to have a family, the death of my daughter, just the things, you know, some of the things, you know, that happened in my childhood, and I had a good childhood, but we had some things that happened. And all of that was for a reason. And the Lord always showed up. And so now I'm in a position where I just think, where do I need to show up? Who do I need to show up for? I need to stop watching Wednesday's Child, okay? I need to stop watching it, because then we always think, okay, is this the next one? Because we know the Lord is not finished with us. He's not finished with our family. He brought us all together. We've been chosen, especially for such a time as this. So many kids are still out there.
My final question. Your mother just wrote a book. You've been chosen. I'd like to know, starting with you, Ricky, what have you been chosen for?
I've been chosen to help others. You know, I have a kind heart as everyone else in the family, and you know, I just think that God placed me on this earth to help others, you know, and that's what I'm here to do.
You started at a very young age helping others, and no one even taught you. That was straight from God. Yep. Shirley, what have you been chosen for?
I'd say the same thing as my brother, and as my mom would say too. I was here to help people, and I'm very good with it. I've helped a lot of people in certain situations, like coworkers, stuff like that. They didn't have a place to go. I opened up my home for a coworker so he wouldn't sleep in the winter in the snowstorm. And now look at him. He's out, got his own place, and living life.
So during the winter storm, that horrific, bitter winter storm, you had someone in your home who, oh, wow, that's beautiful, Shirley. Kenneth Anthony.
Man, well, my parents have taught us to love God and love people, and obviously family falls into that, but I've been chosen for moments like this to tell my story, to be a light in the world. Obviously, I was able to impact and help my family, my mom and dad, and through that, I've been able to do that to many people. So I'm always going to tell my story. I'm always going to be a light. I'm always going to be an advocate for people that are in different circumstances. So yeah, just I'm called to love and to help, you know.
You are a beautiful light.
Thank you.
You really are. And Kenny, we will end with you. What is the takeaway from this story? What do you want people to take away from this story?
That life is a challenge as well as a journey, that all things are possible, that you can embrace the world and be a part of it, and have the world be a part of you. And it just takes the desire and the effort to do so.
Amen to that. Any final thoughts, Cynt?
Thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you do every day. I want to thank this whole crew, the people who put this together. I'm looking over at them now. We all have similar stories, similar adoption stories. And we're not here by accident. We've all been chosen. And we've been chosen for such a time as this. And we just have to keep our hearts open, our doors open, our minds open to what God has in store next, because He is not finished with us. He's not finished with us. We have more to do, and we have more to do together because we've been chosen.
Thank you for your heart. And just thank you for loving Cynt. You love so good.
I love to love. I love to love. And I love you, sister.
Likewise.